All right, deep divers, welcome back. Glad to have you all here for another deep dive. You know, we love to dig into the stuff you're curious about, and you all really came through this time.
Yeah, really interesting stuff.
Extraordinary success, right? That's what we're going for today. Not just like winning the lottery kind of success, but building a life of, actual achievement. And the sources you sent, fascinating stuff, really gets into the nitty-gritty of what that actually means.
Absolutely. And one of the things that really struck me going through the materials is how much emphasis there is on defining what success means to you.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a one-size-fits-all kind of thing.
Yeah. No, totally. I was seeing that too. It's about like figuring out what makes you tick and using that to kind of chart your own course. It's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important point, right? Because so often we get caught up in these external markers of success, right? The fancy car, the big house.
Oh, tell me about it.
But what your sources are really emphasizing is this idea of internal fulfillment. Like, are you actually happy with what you're doing? Are you passionate about it? That kind of thing.
Passionate, engaged, all of that, definitely. And speaking of charting your own course, one of the sources actually lays out a kind of like a framework for success. It's super interesting.
Oh, yeah. Tell me more about that. What's the first step?
Well, it all starts with learning. Like lifelong learning, but with a twist. It's not just about formal education,
Right, like going back to school, getting another degree. Yeah.
Exactly. Like it actually uses this architect, Zaha Hadid, as an example. Super successful, like world-renowned, and she was always learning new software, new design techniques, stuff that wasn't even taught when she was in school. It's all about adapting, I guess, picking up those new skills as you go.
And that's such a crucial point, right? Because the world is changing so rapidly, especially these days. What we learned 5 years ago might be completely obsolete now. The pace of technological advancement is just...
It's mind-boggling, really.
It really is.
Yeah.
And so this idea of constantly being a student, of being willing to learn and adapt, that's so important.
Totally. But here's the thing, right? It's not just about stuffing your brain with information. Like, knowledge is great, but...
You do with it.
Yes, exactly. There's this great anecdote in one of the sources about this tech CEO made millions, right? But he credits his success to all the hours he spent as a teenager, like tinkering in his garage, building computers from scratch.
It's the application, putting things into practice. Love that.
It's that saying, like knowledge is knowing a tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is not putting it in a fruit salad.
I am stealing that. That's fantastic. But it's so true, though. How do we bridge that gap between the tomato and the...
and the fruit salad.
Right. That's where networking and mentorship come in, according to our sources. And it's not just about, going to cocktail parties and handing out business cards. It's about actively seeking out diverse perspectives, joining professional organizations, going to conferences, even just like engaging in online forums. It's about surrounding yourself with people who challenge your assumptions and push you to grow.
That's such a good point, because it's easy to get stuck in our own little bubbles, surrounded by people who think the same way we do.
That's comfortable.
Exactly. But growth happens when we step outside of that comfort zone, right? Challenge ourselves with new ideas, new perspectives.
Couldn't agree more. It's like that saying, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Ooh, I like that one. You know what else really jumped out at me in all of this?
What's that?
Reading, which I know, we're preaching to the choir here, right? You're all avid listeners, probably avid readers too. But the sources take it to a whole other level.
Yeah, like how so?
Well, for one thing, it emphasizes the importance of reading widely, different genres, different perspectives, all that. But then it gives this really cool technique.
Ooh, I love a good technique. Tell me.
So they suggest that after you finish a book, you take like 15 minutes and just write down the key takeaways, like what resonated with you? How can you actually apply what you learned? It's about taking action,
That's brilliant. So often we read something and it's like, oh, that's interesting, but then we just...
move on with our lives.
Exactly. This forces you to actually sit with the information, digest it, make it your own.
Exactly. And speaking of action, the sources really hammer home this point. Success is a marathon, not a sprint.
Oh, absolutely. Consistency is key.
Right. It's about setting those goals, breaking them down into smaller steps, and then just showing up every day, even when you don't feel like it.
And tracking your progress, too.
Yeah.
Because it's so easy to get discouraged if you're not seeing those results right away.
Totally. And celebrating those wins, no matter how small.
Right.
It's all about building momentum. But, even with the best intentions, there are going to be bumps in the road.
Oh, absolutely. Setbacks, challenges, that's just part of the journey.
Exactly. And that's where self-care comes in. The sources really stress how important it is to prioritize your well-being. It's not selfish, it's strategic.
100%. Because you can't pour from an empty cup, right?
Yeah.
If you're burnt out, if you're running on fumes, you're not going to be able to show up as your best self.
So true. Sleep, nutrition, exercise, mindfulness, all of those things play a role. They're not just buzzwords, they're actually fuel for success.
They are. They help you build resilience, which is essential when you're talking about achieving long-term success. Because it's not always going to be easy. You're going to face obstacles,
Yeah.
but it's about having the inner strength to bounce back, to keep going when things get tough.
Hearing you say all this, it really drives home the point that extraordinary success, it's not about some magic formula.
Yep. No magic bullet, no shortcuts.
It's about intentionality. It's about being curious, taking consistent action, and playing the long game. It's about the journey, really.
It really is. And ultimately, it's about defining what success looks like on your own terms, not letting society or social media or anyone else dictate what it should be. It's your life, your journey.
Yeah, love that. So as we wrap up today's deep dive, here's something I want you all to think about. What resonated most with you today? What's one small step, one little action that you can take today, right now, to move a little closer to that vision of success that you have? It doesn't have to be huge, just a step in the right direction. Keep that question in mind, and until next time, happy diving.
Keep diving deep, everybody.